Hi, and welcome to this week's Trust Your Intuition podcast. I'm really looking forward to talking with our guest today, Gabrielle Rutten, who is a former medical doctor who began using emotional freedom techniques, better known as EFT or tapping, over 20 years ago. Since then, she has dedicated her practice exclusively to helping people resolve stress-related psychological and physical issues using EFT. Gabrielle is a master EFT trainer and the founder and director of Novit, a leading training center endorsed by Gary Craig himself, the founder of EFT, offering workshops and courses in EFT tapping and optimal EFT for both professionals and individuals. She co-authored EFT from A to Z with Gary Craig, what we're going to be talking about today, a comprehensive guide that explains EFT and explores the emotional root causes of over 200 physical and mental symptoms, along with how to address them using EFT. Welcome, Gabrielle.
Thank you for having me. That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. So there's so much that I want to cover, but first I want to introduce this book. I'm holding it up if you're watching it on YouTube, and on the audio, just letting people know it's the official EFT guide from A to Z. Again, co-authored Gabrielle Rutten and Gary Craig. And I love this book.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
I love this book, and this is why I reached out to you. There is so much here to help people in so many different ways, and I am so looking forward to diving in. So the first question I want to ask you is your intention and your why behind this all. You know, when I was looking into some of the videos you and Gary have had, I came across on the Palace of Possibilities, his website, an article that you wrote called How I Threw Away My Prescription Pad and Never Looked Back. And I think that's one of the best titles that I've heard for something written. And I want you to talk about that for us.
Yes. I'd love to. Yes. So the short version is I am trained as a medical doctor, and I walked around in a hospital in the white coat and the stethoscope, you know, the picture. But here's the thing. Even in medical school, I intuitively thought, this can't be it. We're only treating symptoms. So in Dutch, they call the medical study studying medicine, which is literally what you're doing. You're studying how, what to prescribe for what symptoms. But I was young, and I thought, well, they probably know what they're talking about, so let me learn this. And so I did work as a doctor and prescribed drugs for quite a few years. I worked in internal medicine, and then I did some 10 years in occupational medicine, which I already found a little better to do, because so now we're looking at what can you do instead of, you're ill and we need to prescribe medications. So I rather liked the coaching part of that type of practicing medicine. But still, I mean, obviously I was still, obliged to follow the medical protocols. And so that intuition that made me wonder, why don't we look at the causes of diseases? That really, got me thinking. And I don't write my own history very well. It's in the book somewhere, but I decided I don't want to be caught in this system any longer. I really disagree with treating symptoms. And I first ran across an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course that I really liked. That changed my view on things, because that also looks at how can you program yourself to follow other behavior. And then I went to Kosovo for the United Nations, Kosovo in the eastern part of Europe, for 3 years. And after I finished that part of my story, I came back in the Netherlands, and everybody was talking about The Secret, the little book, The Secret. So I looked it up on internet, as one does, and then I came across a coach who was doing the principle of The Secret with EFT, and I had not heard of EFT, but that brought me to Gary's original website. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this is weird. Tapping on on yourself, and that does something. But I was curious, and I started tapping, and lo and behold, as you guys say in English, it worked beautifully. So in a couple of months' time, I did not have migraine headaches anymore.
Mm.
That got my attention.
Yeah, for sure.
So I really dived in and decided, okay, I really want to understand exactly what this is. And actually, Gary contacted me because I sent in a story about using EFT. I forgot for what it was, but he called me, and ever since that first call some 20 years ago, we stayed in contact.
Mm.
So that's why I decided, I mean, if you really, really dive into how EFT works and how you address your stresses with EFT, that really shows you a way out of the maze, like literally.
Yeah.
Because, in
Yeah.
my world, at least 95%, and on a sunny day, I might say 98% of all the chronic symptoms and diseases that we suffer from, are stress based.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the short version of this story. So I'm I've never looked back, really. I've
Yeah.
never looked back because I really enjoyed teaching EFT. Obviously, I teach EFT to people that want to use it as self-help method, and that's what the book is about. The book is for everybody who wants to learn EFT and know how it goes as a self-help method.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the notes I wrote here just in when I was reading the book. I have, if you look, it's so highlighted all throughout because there's like so many yes moments and so many like that's where it's at. It's that premise of unresolved psychological issues often that this is my belief that manifest itself in
Yes.
these symptoms physically that we deal with, and I felt more of a connection to EFT reading this book, particularly because I'm interested in the optimal EFT. But I want you to break it down into if you can talk a little bit to our listeners about the gold standard tapping and the optimal
Yes.
EFT. What is the difference in the basics of both?
Yes. 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 I love to do that. So here's the thing: Gary Craig is the founder, and he released or gave EFT tapping the
Mm-hmm.
goal to the world in the mid 90s. In hindsight, he says, I was a bit naive because he said, this is what I developed. Just take it and do your own thing with this, which wasn't really what he meant literally. That people started changing the basic protocol, etc. So in 2011, he decided, okay, so now I really need to make a distinction between the original way of EFT and the other forms. I mean, he's quite happy that a lot of people adopted EFT and did their thing with it, but he really wants to make sure that the public knows where to go for the really official form of EFT, the real form. And so from 2011, he named it Gold Standard EFT. So that's the tapping form. It
Mm-hmm.
has a basic protocol. You can download it for free from my website, my novet.eft.com website. And that's the official basic protocol, which probably, members of your audience will notice that some of the things that other people add to or have added to EFT are not in the official basic protocol, and it works beautifully. So EFT tapping is around for 30 years, almost 30 years probably. Here's the interesting thing: even in the very beginning, Gary wanted to launch this more spiritual way of working, which is called optimal EFT. So, optimal EFT, you don't tap, but use a form of meditation. But when he started talking about this to the people around him in the mid 90s, people were, you know, not quite sure what he meant. So we thought this is too early. I can't release this yet. So we very consciously decided to release EFT tapping first.
Mm-hmm.
But it was his big desire to release Optimal EFT, which he did in 2014. So the main difference is that Optimal EFT is a more meditative form of working. The the brilliancy of Gary being that he kept the structure intact. So if you properly do EFT, you first identify what gives you stress. And if you really want to be successful, you have to identify the exact moment in which you feel stress and your stress reaction is activated. And that is the same with Optimal EFT. Then there's this beautiful, you could even call it a loving kindness meditation, with what Gary has named the unseen therapist. And then afterwards, you check whether the specific moment is, whether it's still charged or it's completely free of charge, being no negative emotions, no negative bodily sensations. And so this is because meditation works. There's lots of research that shows that meditation is very beneficial, and it is. I do also different forms of meditation, but this structure makes it really special, because now we work very specifically on what gives us stress. I always say, imagine you do this beautiful meditation and you're completely zen, and you stand up, you walk out the door, and here you run into this person who is really aggressive and is really nagging and making all these remarks. There you go again. Stress reaction is activated because you have not addressed in your beautiful meditation, you have not addressed these specific moments with this person. And so you need to customize EFT to your specific moments where your stress reaction is activated. And if you do that, and the book explains this, then you can really resolve, long-running stress patterns.
Yeah, it's really powerful because, you mentioned self-help, and that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on in my bullet points here, is that one of the reasons that I liked the book so much is that it is a self-help. It's a process. It's showing people not just the theory behind it, but how to actually move through from anxiety. You have whiplash all the way to physical, emotional, sexual traumas. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating read, and I find it's so helpful in terms of showing people how to. So we take it from this construct, how does this help me, this emotional freedom technique, and really gets in there to show people how to walk through it. And that's why I feel it's so accessible to whatever you're dealing with. So you mentioned, the feelings that come from the moments when stress arises. And it's that awareness piece and that intuitive process that I also feel EFT can help so many people with, because when you come to know yourself of why is this person stressing me out, which you talk about in the book, the roots of it, right? When was the last time we felt this stress, and walking through those processes. I would love you to talk a little bit more about that and just go a little bit deeper on it.
Yes. So here's the thing. Our behavior, our reactions is a learned behavior. What do I mean by that? From the moment, actually from about 3 weeks after conception, so also in the womb, in utero, we start learning how to deal with life because of all the specific situations we go through. Every single moment where our stress reaction is activated, your subconscious makes like a snapshot from that moment for future use. So what our subconscious does is take inventory and see, okay, so what is happening in this moment? Because next time I really want to use this stress reaction again to get out of this situation, because every single moment that you survive is interesting for future use. So your subconscious stores what you see, what you hear, what you feel, taste, your balance, and your thoughts in the moment. So all the details of the moment are stored in your long-term memory. This is the reason why we have this so-called database with all these different types of reactions that we subconsciously activate and use in a new situation. We hardly come across real new situations.
Right.
Most situations, with your intuition, intuitively, oh, I've experienced this before. I've been in a situation that looks like the one that I'm in right now. And it's that realization, which is really subconscious, that makes you activate your stress reaction and your behavior, your reactions, very close to what you did before. This is why, the stress pattern is really repetitive. And if somebody, if you have had situations where somebody was really criticizing you and you really felt, belittled and not good enough and unsure of yourself, as a child, it's understandable. But because these reactions, these patterns are subconscious, even as an adult, even if there's awareness of the fact I shouldn't be upset when this person
Right.
gives me this type of criticism, you still are. Your stress reaction is still turned on, and that is exactly where EFT can step in, because if you do EFT correctly, you identify. So what specific moments give me stress right here and now? And then, the book teaches you how to look back in a certain way to find out, so how did I learn in my life to turn on my stress reaction in these types of situations? And that is exactly what you turn off with EFT if you do it
Yeah.
correctly.
If you do it
Because
correctly. So, yeah.
yes,
Yeah, it to me, it's a wonderful supplement to Bessel van der Kolk's work on trauma, because
yes,
the body keeps the score, right? So again, another beautiful title. So when you're aware of these feelings that come up, like you described, someone can bother you, and the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Oftentimes, as an adult, right, we're like super angry or super reactive, but really it's because
yes,
we were three and this happened. And so when it's coming up for us, I try to look at things as an opportunity, and help my clients
yes,
with that. Is it's coming up for you to be released, and I find
yes,
that EFT is a helpful tool to help people become aware of these patterns that you talk about, to be able to move through them. So I want to talk about, it ties into what you just said about the negative core belief, because
yes.
oftentimes that's where it's at. And when we can identify that, we can take that thread and move through what's really happening. So speak about that, please.
Yes, so then in EFT land, we call this the negative core belief. There's different terms in different approaches, but in EFT land, we call it the negative core belief. You have one negative core belief. Everybody has one,
Mm.
which, the meaning of the negative core belief is I'm not good enough. You know, it could be, I mean, the words sometimes are a bit different, like I'm not enough or I'm not important.
Mm-hmm.
But the sentence, the conclusion, because it's a negative conclusion, always starts with I am, because you really identify with this negative notion of yourself. It starts in utero already. So every stressful situation where you feel criticized or not understood or abandoned, or those really negative moments where you really feel, but what about me? Or where you feel, oh, they don't like me, or I did not do this well, or when you're very young, your reaction is, oh, they don't love me. And it's really really stressful, because when you're really young, you you think they're gonna chuck you out of the door like Fred Flintstone, that they'll put you
Abandonment.
next to the garbage, abandonment. And so it's very stressful, and quite often there's fear of death connected, especially when you're very young. So it's our most important stress pattern, that's a red thread throughout your whole life. And we all recognize this, because when I do my introductory workshop or my trainings, I explain this, and I say, who recognizes that they, when they feel I'm failing now, or I did this wrong, or somebody's criticizing you, internally you think, oh, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of variation, but it really is I am negative conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I am bad. The American culture, quite often people think I'm bad. I'm a bad child. I'm a bad mother or partner or whatever. That reaction can be activated, dozens of times
Over
during the
and over
day.
and over. Yes, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. If I ask my clients, just keep a little, make a list, keep a little diary of how often you think, "Oh, I'm not good enough." Just to to develop awareness on how often you are thinking this. People are appalled basically because it happens so many times.
Yeah.
Problem being that the conclusion is not the right conclusion, first of all. And secondly, your stress reaction is activated. So that means that you are generating stress in your own body that is unnecessary. Because even if somebody criticizes you, it's just words. I mean, if you're able to stay calm and just listen to what they say, there's either merit to these words, and you can, you can take advantage of what they're telling you, or it's complete nonsense and you can ignore it. But there's no reason to activate the stress reaction. But in actual fact, that is what is happening. The
Yeah.
stress reaction really is needed to fight or flight, physically fight or flight, not when you're, in a meeting and somebody has criticizes you for something. You do not need your fight flight reaction. You can just listen to what they say and then, react in whatever way is good in that moment.
Mm.
And so I lost my train of thought, but the negative core belief is extremely important. So I pay a lot of attention in the book
Yeah.
for the readers to identify and really recognize their own negative core belief.
Yeah, and spend time thinking about it, because when you do identify it, to me,
Yes.
that's one of the keys of the book, is that when you identify that, you now put that in your pocket and you move forward throughout your day, understanding that that is how you are
Yes.
often operating in the world. And that,
Yes.
again, what I really appreciated and valued from the book is that you can come back to it on a daily basis multiple times and do like your worst moments of my day, which I want you to talk about, so that
Yes.
you're constantly
Yes.
practicing. And sometimes I think people might get overwhelmed, like, okay, I got to sit down and I got to go into the cave and I have to process this whole big thing, when actually we can take these little tools and have these little mini therapy sessions with ourselves throughout the day to stop and say, wow, I just got triggered at the grocery store. And
Yes.
so I can focus on, that was my worst moment of the day and why. So talk about that.
Yes, and that I think that's an extremely important point, because yes, we all have very traumatic experiences, more or less. I mean, there's a bit of a difference, everybody. But let's put that aside for now, because your most important triggers are the daily triggers,
Yeah.
the daily moments where you are triggered. But when I say triggered, I mean something triggers you, and then your stress reaction is activated. There's a link between what is a trigger for you and your stress reaction. And so with EFT, you want to sever that link. So if you if you train yourself to really become aware of what specific moments in a day am I triggered, then, as you said, at the end of the day, at a moment where you have, for example, 15 to 20 minutes to precisely work on what happened, you can sit down and treat that little moment where you were really triggered
Mm.
with EFT in the proper way, either the tapping form or the meditation, until your reaction is at a zero, zero being no reaction at all. If you were to do this, I mean, if your listeners would do this because of this interview, for 3 months, do one of those specific moments at one a day for 3 months, I guarantee you feel completely different.
Yeah.
Because if you do it like that, you have worked on your most important stress pattern, because most of these, worst moments of my day situations are, most of them are where, your negative core belief was triggered into
Right.
thinking that I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm not important, etc.
Yeah, and this ties into the detective work that you talk about, and being mindful of these things that come up so that you can find that core belief and find that
Yes,
pattern that's been
yes,
possibly running your life for a long time so that you can gain more
yes,
control of yourself. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. And so the most important question you can ask yourself is how did I learn this?
yeah,
Because what you want to do, if you're like really upset because somebody is criticizing you and you think, I shouldn't be this upset. This
mm-hmm,
is ridiculous. I'm a grown up. Why am I this, upset about this? If you then ask yourself, when and where did I learn to be so upset?
mm,
You will definitely go back in time and arrive at the first 6 or 7 years of your life
yeah,
where this type of criticism was really, stressful. Probably your father and or mother, maybe siblings, maybe a grandmother or a grandfather, and later on it's teachers and coaches and what have you. But if in those younger years, if somebody is angry at you and criticizes you, you really think the world is coming to an end. That's
yeah,
how strong an impact that can have. And
yes,
that's what you subconsciously carry with you. And
yeah.
it's part of your reaction now.
Yeah, yeah. One of the valuable points in the book as well is how you discuss and lay out the child development, which I think people would be so interested in to understand themselves better. Because the
Yes.
way I look at it is EFT being helpful is that part of you that is, the strong, stable adult that says, why am I reacting to this? And then the wounded child part that was
Yes.
absolutely validated in feeling what they feel. You're taking those two parts and you're making them become whole, because it's a very frustrating experience to be aware on one level that this is
Yes.
ridiculous or not present or over
Yes.
emotional or overreactive, and to take that inner child that's been affected and put those pieces together so that you
Yes.
can
Yes.
you can feel better. One of the things that drew me to this is I've been working with something in my own life and with my clients for years. I call it, God, take this from me. And so when you're feeling something really, really heavy, it's just that moment of letting it, I describe it as a bell curve. You let it come all the way to the top, that feeling. And then you right at that, you be brave, you breathe that brave warrior, let the feelings come, identify what you're feeling. And then right at that moment to ask, God, the universe, whatever anybody's belief is, to take it from you. And it works. And it's
And
a
it
massive
works.
tool. And then a few years ago, not even, one of my colleagues, a medical doctor as well, turned me on to Gary Craig's work. And that's where I discovered you as well. And when he talked about the optimal EFT, I thought, okay, this is very interesting. Right? Yeah.
Yes, it's similar. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, because unseen therapist. So Gary Craig has called her the unseen therapist.
Mhm.
Has given her a female gender because in general that energy is a little softer and more caring, etc. But you can easily, I mean, you customize this too. So if the unseen therapist has more male energy or a neutral thing or universe, as you said, or anything else is fine. It's just, you know, connecting with and trusting that this,
Yes.
our this organizing principle, the way we were our creator is loving.
Yes.
We are loving beings. We are created from love. And it's our ego that interferes and makes us react in a way that we're not, completely happy with. And others react in a way that we're not completely happy with. But connecting with this organizing principle and realizing that if you ask for help, you will receive it. It's because we have free will. You will only be helped if you really ask with your heart for help.
Yeah.
And in the meditation with the unseen therapist, we could also say, please take this away from me. I don't
Yes.
need this anymore, or this doesn't serve me. Or
Right.
I understand I was hurt as a child, but it's over. That's not happening right now.
Yeah.
I don't need that type of reaction, and it really works. It's
Yeah. It
beautiful.
really really works. And I appreciated his term, the unseen therapist, because I understood it was more maybe universally accepted. It's one of those things that
Exact.
that makes sense. But I also took it to mean that he had felt and understood where that comes from, and so it's right. And I feel like
Yes.
you offered that in your book of taking those principles, putting it together in a way that lays it out foundationally, explains it, gives a nice introduction. You do a super job with explaining things. Super,
Thank
super
you.
job.
Thank you.
And then the second part of the book, putting it into practical application. And for my audience, people who listen to Trust Your Intuition, that's a big component of this is how do we get, not just talking about it, but how do we put
Yes.
it to the day to
Yes.
day so that we feel more at peace, because that's the
Yes.
goal here, is to feel better,
Yes.
and become more whole and feel that. So to me, the book is a must. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter what you've suffered with. If you have migraines, like you said in the beginning, or you have, deeper trauma, it is a book that can help you become more aware of yourself, understand yourself, more gentle with yourself, and give you some tools that you have at the ready that just, they're right there, and they can help you in the
Yes.
day to day with whatever we're dealing with. So some last minute words from you of what you would like people to take away from your book and from listening to this podcast today.
Yes. So, stress is a very important thing to look at. And most people that I work with intuitively know that whatever the disease or diagnosis is, or whatever symptoms they have, if I ask them, what does your body need to heal? All of them intuitively know that they have to work on stressful events, stressful situations, things that are stressing them out. It's a very important part of whatever is happening in your body, because it's mind over matter. So if you are at peace with yourself and the world around you, your body is fine. It organizes itself. But if you are stressed out, that shows up in the body. So I would very much like to invite people to realize and just be open-minded. This is based, every single example I give in the book is based on 20 plus years of using EFT only to help
Mm.
people with emotional problems, as well as severe physical problems too.
Yeah. One case study I do want to highlight before we let you go is one on issues with the eyes. And
Yes.
so I wanted you to talk about that, because I found I found them all fascinating, as I said, but that I thought that was so interesting. Some of the things you wrote about why we might have eye issues. So if you could talk about that.
Yes. So eye issues are correlated, are related to visual uh, events, visual stressful events, because we look with our eyes. So if our eyes are reacting, that means that we have to find very visual moments where the whatever you saw was very stressful to you. Now, we obviously, most of us see, so we look all the time. But I worked with a few people that have had very specific, very stressful moments. I remember one lady. She said, "I still remember looking out the window, and my partner walked away out of my life, and it was very, very stressful." So that little scene, her seeing her partner walk out of her life, that we
Mm.
had to neutralize completely, and a few other things, and her eye problems with glaucoma completely disappeared.
Yeah.
So visual, if your eyes are involved, you need to look at visual things. If your eyesight deteriorates when you get older, it's a limiting belief to say that, oh, but your eyesight deteriorates because you're getting old. No, there's a buildup of situations that you do not like to see, and if you can't read, close by, that means that stuff that is right under your nose is something you do not want to see. That could growing older, being older, could be other stuff. But if you really sort of focus on, so what am I seeing that gives me a lot of stress? If you work on those, your eyes will react and
Yeah.
improve.
Yeah.
Interesting,
Yeah.
huh?
It reminded me, yes, very. It reminded me of reminiscent of Louise Hay's work on stress under, the physical symptoms, and to pay attention to that. And what have we got to lose, Gabrielle, when we're suffering, right? What do we have to lose to just try EFT?
So exactly. I mean, you do it with yourself. Yes, you have to buy probably have to buy the book, but there's also some stuff on internet and my website and my YouTube channel and etc. So just, I mean, EFT works beautifully, but the only condition is you have to do it. You really
Yeah.
have to do EFT to and do it. Make I always say, just turn it into a little project. Do a little bit of EFT every day. Do
Every
10,
day.
20 minutes. What
Yeah.
can you lose?
Yeah. What can you lose? Exactly. So, okay. So how can people find you? Mention again the YouTube channel, social media. How can people reach out to you? Your website?
Yes, my website is noveteft.com, and my YouTube channel is also Novet, the EFT standard, and my name,
Okay.
Gabrielle Rutten. That's I don't do socials.
Okay.
I also have my personal practice with a English page, but Novet website has everything in English. There's an English side to the website, so I think that would be the best way for people to look around and see whether they want to do a course or the introductory workshop, which is free,
Mhm.
etc. There's all kinds of stuff on my website, so I would advise them to have a look there.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the work you're doing and the commitment to this work to help people find that root cause in order to get well. And there is obviously a place for all medicine, but we need more of you out there. And it's refreshing to hear that you've come to that place of perspective in treating your clients. It's really it's awesome, is what it is. So
Thank you
if
so
you're
much.
watching on YouTube, you're welcome. Official EFT, A to Z, Gabrielle Rutten, co-authored with Gary Craig, the founder of EFT Tapping. And we appreciate your time greatly being here. And like I said, I looked forward to talking with you, and it didn't disappoint. So it's great.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you. And thank you for listening.